compelling detective story, a cloak and dagger action, and a romantic drama, all these stories were taken from real life. The history of Kazakhstan is inseparable from the world history. Reflections on History, our version.
Under a Spanish sky. It seems that exotic Cantabria, Asturias and Teruel are not far away. El Pueblo Unido and My Grenada play on the radio. They announce political information for 5 minutes before classes start and say, "All Spanish people fight bravely against the fascist invaders." On the newspaper's front pages, there are poetic dedications by Tair Zharokov saying, "Let bomb launchers and machine guns strike the enemies of the Spanish people." And Zhambyl Zhabayev also wrote a poem. Poet Zhambyl hears the rolls of distant bloody war. I wish I could give my song and my heart for you, my fighting Spanish brothers. Volunteers stormed the military recruiting stations, but only a few were chosen for this honor. As for those who achieved their aim, their names went down in history. They were citizens of Kazakhstan under a Spanish sky. The Soviet Union was the only source providing military assistance to the Spanish Republic from 1936 until 1938. Everybody, including workers and ordinary engineers, went under assumed names. Kazakhstan's citizens commemorate their heroic compatriots. Chapter 1. Operation X. The sun is bright and the sky is cloudless in the capital of Spain. History disappearing from tables is in the frame. Only a few street names reminding us of the past are connected with Franco, and they remained in Madrid because the majority of them were renamed. However, this little side street in the city centre carries the name of the rebellious General Francisco Franco. A coup d'etat occurred in July 1936. The conspirators, who had Hitler and Mussolini's support, led a revolt against the Spanish Republic. They started supporting the right-wing forces, which had lost the election, while England and France said they would maintain their neutrality.
Англия и Франция сказали, будем держать нейтралитет.
The Soviet Union supported the agreement on non-intervention in Spanish affairs too, and emphasized the provision of humanitarian aid, including canned food and fuel. Only in Kazakhstan did they collect tens of millions of rubles. Fascist Germany sent machinery and soldiers openly. They couldn't win a complete victory in Spain, but managed to conquer the southern regions of Spain and some colonies. As a result, soldiers, specialists and military equipment were needed to resist the Spanish Republic.
И теперь, значит, для противостояния Испании, республиканской Испании требовались и военная техника, специалисты.
They started so-called Operation X, which was dispatching soldiers and arms in absolute secrecy. They sent unassembled Soviet tanks and planes, while the Secret Service spread information that the cargo was sent to the Far East. Every ship followed an elaborate route and had a disinformation plan to confuse the enemies. The specialists signed a non-disclosure agreement. The first Soviet volunteers, including pilots, members of tank crews, artillerymen, engineers, technicians and sailors, started arriving in Spain in September 1936. I know that people from Kazakhstan were among them, and they fought in the Spanish Civil War. They tried to reach the final destination unnoticed and changed their flags, supporting documents, names and repainted ships. As a rule, they went through dangerous areas at night. The team members disguised themselves as tourists and walked on the deck. Pyotr Shevtsov was among the aviators who were sent to Spain in the autumn of 1936. It was their first and convincing victory. Previously unknown aircraft having short blunt fuselages and small wings protected the Spanish sky. The fascists called the Polikarpov I-16, which was known as an ishak or donkey among Soviet pilots, a rat because of its appearance and speed. Pyotr distinguished himself in the Spanish battles, where he fought as a very talented fighter pilot. He even was nicknamed Camarado Pedro because of that.
И за это даже был прозван Камарада Педро.
He brought down 4 aircraft, 3 personally and 1 in a group. A year later, in October 1937, Camarado Pedro was awarded the title of Hero of the Soviet Union for his bravery and military valor.
Петр Шевцов.
Although Pyotr Shevtsov was born in Bukhara, he lived in the Chulkubas district of the Shymkent region in his childhood. It still was the Shymkent region at that time. We can say that Shevtsov is remembered in the Chulkubas district and Chulkubas village today too.
Сохраняется в Тюлькубасском районе, в селе Тюлькубас.
Chapter 2, At the Helm of History. Although there were no aircraft markings, it was easy to guess that they were Stalin's Falcons of a new kind. The leader himself asserted that much was expected of the Polikarpov I-16 fighter aircraft. After Soviet plants produced the first batch of 30 aircraft, they started assembling new ones on fast track. The Spanish Republic received almost 700 aircraft over 3 years. Of course, the military assistance was not given selflessly, and the enemy's press told legends about its volume. Estimates of the Soviet army's strength went as high as 500,000. Now there was no Soviet army in Spain. There may have been a handful of airmen and other technicians, a few hundred at the most. Some thousands of foreigners who fought in Spain, not to mention millions of Spaniards, were witness to this. Historians say simultaneously that there were about 700 people. In total, according to different information, about 5,000 Soviet citizens went to help the Republicans both voluntarily and in a voluntary and compulsory way. They had various surnames and different passports from countries in Scandinavia, the Baltic states, and even Germany. They even arrived there as representatives of a trade mission.
Прибалтики и даже Германии и так далее. Они прибывали туда даже представителями торгпредства.
Some of them had Nansen passports, which were temporary IDs recognized internationally. As a rule, surnames, names, and places of residence were changed. It is the reason why it's difficult to say now how many residents of Kazakhstan protected the Spanish Republic and who was among those 5,000 people. The correct information mainly refers to those who died in circumstances which couldn't be hidden or received the highest government awards. Everything is known about those people because they are heroes of the Soviet Union. Pyotr Shevtsov was among 59 heroes of the Soviet Union. 19 of them received high titles posthumously. We have even less information about the names of tank crew members, mechanics, and translators. In total, 600 military advisors were in the Spanish War. A few tens of people were missing and 189 killed. There was a Kazakh pilot whose name was Zhambyl Zhabayev.
Это Zhambyl Zhabayev.
According to a version, the first Kazakh pilot was from the Zaysan region. This information has been found recently, but the inquiry has not finished yet. In 1929, he was enlisted in the Red Army, where he was in the 82nd Regiment of Turkestan Special Cavalry Division. He demonstrated his remarkable skills there, because he wasn't just a daredevil, but rather a thoughtful soldier. He participated actively in the battles against the Basmash.
Очень такой, не только там сорвиголова, а думающий солдат был. Он принимал активное участие в боях против басмачей.
In 1936, Maldibayev, pilot of the 40th Squadron, received the rank of lieutenant. A year later, Zhabayev became a flight navigator, passed the test, and entered the navigation department of the Zhukovsky Air Force Engineering Academy. In 1938, he spent a few months in Spain, where he fulfilled his international duty. Then he returned home, and unfortunately, when the plane was approaching Tashkent, an air crash occurred, and he died at the young age of 31.
Подлетая к Ташкенту, его самолет потерпел авиакатастрофу, и он погиб. Всего в возрасте 31 год.
It probably happened due to engine failure. Similar accidents had occurred in the Spanish sky, as pilots tried new techniques under fighting conditions. Chapter 3: International Volunteers in Spain. The main center where volunteers wishing to go to Spain as members of international brigades were recruited was in France. People from 64 countries fought in the so-called international brigades. According to various sources, there were from 30 to 50,000 volunteers. In total, there were 7 international brigades. The civil war in Spain was probably an occurrence which inspired a burst of patriotism on one hand, I am quite convinced of the sincerity of people who say, terror in Barcelona, that great city in ashes, a mere 20 houses wrecked. Where did you see a firing line running with blood and deafening with the roar of guns? I saw groups of tranquil men and women strolling on the Ramblers. I didn't come at once to the firing line. In a civil war, the firing line is invisible. It passes through the hearts of men. The French pilot and writer Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, Britain, George Orwell, and the American writer Ernest Hemingway were in the international brigades, as well as Kadem Zhumaniyazov. Researchers are still trying to find out how a native of western Kazakhstan appeared in this war. They suppose there were quite a lot of Kazakhs in Spain. The Kazakhs fought on the fronts and were taken prisoner. In France, Italy, and maybe Spain, somebody tried to do something, but it's a different question.
В Испании кто-то там пытался там что-то делать, но это отдельный вопрос.
Spain left a mark on Zhumaniyazov's destiny and was discovered by chance. It would be possible to shoot a few films based on his diaries. They would include Captivity, Escape, Paris, and Love. Helene, it's time to part. You can't stop crying. Even my promises to return do not help. I'll buy a gramophone record and say, if you miss me, listen to the Shabada song. My love, I'll always think about you. Her fragile form melting away on the platform of the Paris train station will remain in my heart. Forgive me, my darling. We will meet again. However, they weren't destined to meet again. In 1946, Kadem passed away. He died in unclear circumstances. The Spanish War tragically affected the destinies of many people who had information about. Epilogue: Leaving this sky. Both Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union tested their machinery at the Spanish range, which they later used in World War II. They tested machinery including the Polikarpov I-16 fighter aircraft and Messerschmitt products, honing their military and propaganda skills. Incidentally, units blocking retreat first appeared in the war. Retreating soldiers were shot from machine guns. These are the reasons why they say that military specialists, engineers and technicians received high training in Spain, which helped not only protect the homeland, but also ultimately defeat Germany.
Способствовали отстоять родину, еще и победить Германию.
On September the 23rd, 1938, the Republicans announced a unilateral withdrawal of all soldiers who weren't Spanish citizens from Spain. The majority of the international brigades left the country. Of course, not everyone left. Probably some citizens of Kazakhstan were among those who remained under the Spanish sky.